The King and Queen are heading down under on a 9-day tour of Australia. It'll be the King's 17th official trip to the country and the first Commonwealth realm he's visited as monarch. But it's been reported that no state premier will be attending a planned reception to welcome the royals. Our royal correspondent Laura Bundock's been following developments.
This trip has been in the planning for months and months, and so too all the engagements. So it's very hard to see how a diary clash might prevent any state premier from attending. This is a big moment for the King. It is his first major overseas tour since his cancer diagnosis. Australia will be the first realm he's visited. And for Australians, this is the first time they've ever had a reigning British king in their country. Now, the King has already, as we've been hearing, had to condense his tour due to his health. But I think a visit to the landlocked capital, Canberra, was never not going to happen. And it's here, where he is head of state, of course, he's due to address a reception at Parliament House, the very political heart of the country. The Buckingham Palace said that that event would be attended by political and community leaders, but it's now being reported that not all will be there. So the 8 state and territory premiers said they're not going, so they won't be there to hear the King's address. Now, the Sydney Morning Herald newspaper is describing this as a childish no-show. So the question is, what's going on here? Look, I think with just 2.5 days of engagements planned for Australia, it leaves very little window or time for debate and discussion about the future of the monarchy in Australia. So I wonder if this is being seen as an opportunity to try and create a bit more conversation around that. Remember, it was back in 1999 that Australia held a referendum on becoming a republic. Australians voted no back then. The debate went away. The polls show that support for becoming a republic has been dipping ever since. It was in 2016, you go back, all the premiers, the then premiers, signed a document saying they want to become a republic. Nothing happened. There is a Republican Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, but even he has kicked into the long grass plans to hold another referendum on this. I suspect this snub is a chance to make some anti-monarchy headlines, to test the water, if you like, ahead of the King's arrival in Sydney on Friday.
The King and Queen are heading down under on a 9-day tour of Australia. It'll be the King's 17th official trip to the country and the first Commonwealth realm he's visited as monarch. But it's been reported that no state premier will be attending a planned reception to welcome the royals. Our royal correspondent Laura Bundock's been following developments.
In just 8 days, Canberra will host a royal reception as King Charles visits Australia for the first time since ascending the throne. But of the 6 state premiers, not one has accepted the invitation.
Like King Charles or not, King Charles is still head of state. We do have a constitution which makes him so. These characters you see here are committing fraud. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. They know, so they just don't turn up. They don't care because we, the people, are stupid. We allow them to get away with it. So they're a private corporation, could be seen on reasonable grounds. They're operating as criminals, and it's up to us to do something about it. But they're just laughing at us. I mean, look, the head of state is coming here, whether you like King Charles or not. He is the head of state. He is here on Friday, and these guys just dodge him. So, you know, it's time to wake up. Just look at the rest of the video, guys. Try and share it. And wakies.
I have a number of long-standing engagements, internal and external, and the government and the community will be very, very well represented by the Governor and the Parliamentary Secretary.
South Australia's Premier is also preoccupied with a regional cabinet meeting.
With no disrespect to His Majesty, he holds an important office that deserves regard and respect from the community. I've just got to be with people, and I'm doing that in Whyalla.
Tasmania's Premier is on a US trade mission. The WA leader has other commitments, and Queensland is just weeks away from its state election.
I was invited to the King's visit, but I've got a bit on in Queensland at the moment.
And New South Wales Premier Chris Minns won't be there, but he will be hosting King Charles and Queen Camilla in Sydney, with new details emerging about the royal itinerary. This will be his 17th Australian visit after first touching down in 1966 to head to school at Geelong Grammar's Timbertop.
He will soon be learning much more about Australian life.
The 1983 tour with Princess Diana was a sensation. after her death, and his marriage to Camilla, their first visit together was in 2012. 2015 was the couple's last time in Sydney.
Enjoying Sydney, Your Royal Highness. Great to catch up again.
Absolutely.
Their last trip to Australia was to Queensland 6 years ago. Then a prince, he will return on Friday as king. Paul Kadak, 7 News.
Must Sir John Kerr accept your advice, whatever advice you give?
Unquestionably, the Governor-General takes the advice from his Prime Minister and from no one else.
And must act on that advice?
Unquestionably, the Governor-General must act on the advice of his Prime Minister.
There is no tolerance here. He must
None whatever.
Well, may we say, God save the Queen. Because nothing will save the Governor-General.
Probably the most significant thing the Queen will do on this visit was to sign the Proclamation of Australia Act 1986. This severs the remaining constitutional links with Britain, links with Parliament, the judiciary and the Privy Council. Only the link with the Crown remains. Thus Australia is now nearer to becoming a republic if the people so desire.
Government House, Canberra, where the Labor Party today ended more than 7 years in the political wilderness. Mr Hawke and his 27 ministers arrived here for the swearing-in ceremony that would put them in government. For the first time, cameras were allowed inside the Governor-General's study.
I, Robert James Lee Hawke, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law, so help me God.
So what are you going to do in Westminster Abbey when you are urged to say the oath of allegiance to King Charles?
I do that every term.
No, I know, but are you going to say it in the Abbey with the world's cameras watching?
I will do what's entirely appropriate as the representative of Australia, which is Australians made a choice in 1999. And one of the things that you've got to do is to accept democratic outcomes. So we made that choice, and I will certainly engage in that spirit.
So you will say the oath?
As I have done 10 times when I got sworn into Parliament. Yes.
Just to be clear, in the Abbey, there's been confusion over whether you will. As the Prime Minister of Australia, in the Abbey, on Saturday, you will say the oath.
As the Prime Minister of Australia, it's expected that I will do that.
Mr Albanese, I invite you to take and subscribe the affirmation of office as Prime Minister of Australia.
I, Anthony Norman Albanese, do solemnly and sincerely affirm and declare that I will well and truly serve the Commonwealth of Australia, her land and her people in the office of Prime Minister. I, Anthony Norman Albanese, do swear that I will well and truly serve the Commonwealth of Australia, her land and her people in the office of Minister for Infrastructure and Transport and Minister for Regional Australia and Local Government.
Would you sit down and sign the document, please?